Okay, awesome. I'm gonna get going. Let's start with something a little different, and then we can get this. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, players, if I can get you guys just to kind of sit along the bleachers there, and if you could do me a favor and keep the basketballs still. I'm going to sort of address the players for a second, so I'm a bit of a weird guy this way. You guys, I'm going to ask a favor of you. You're used to being the focus, where we come out to a practice typically and it's about the players. You're used to that. This is not that setting. This is about them. And so I'm going to ask you guys to be really aware of not being distractions in here so that these people are allowed to focus, because they're the ones who paid the money to learn here today. So are we all good? Awesome. My name's Dave Love. I started in 2001 running these little shooting cabins for 12-year-olds in Calgary called The Love of the Game. And I think in 2004 I started working with a college player named Josh Feast at Mount Royal College, who went on to play at the University of Calgary. He had some success, and so I got to kind of tag on to his success a little bit, started working with a few different college players. All this time my mentor was Chip England, who's the shooting coach in San Antonio with the Spurs, and in my opinion is by far the best shooting coach in the world. Everybody else is just fighting for second place. Chip phoned one day, thanks coach, and he said, expect a phone call from the Phoenix Suns. I've recommended you for a job. And I went, oh my God, that's impossible. That could never happen. I'm not ready for that. And I realized, wait a second, I've been working with 19 to 22-year-old males at a relatively high level, and I'm being asked to work with a 23-year-old male. This isn't that big a jump. So I started to wrap my brain around that might be possible. Had some success there, worked for the Cleveland Cavaliers with Tristan Thompson, as he became the first player in the history of the NBA to switch his dominant shooting hand. He went from shooting left-handed to right-handed, and I was the shooting coach that sort of guided him through that process. I'm proud to say that year, his first year with a brand new hand, he shot a career high, and it's still his career high to this day. After that year, I was hired by the Orlando Magic to work with Aaron Gordon, who used to make 42% of his free throws. He now makes 70% of his free throws, and worked with about 5 different players on the Magic. So that's kind of a little bit about who I am, where I've come from, and the things that we've accomplished. I want to start out with something just a little bit kind of silly. It doesn't really teach too much, but this is something that at the NBA level we do. A lot of different teams have kind of stolen or adopted at the beginning of workouts. Is there somebody who hasn't really shot a shot yet today? Perfect. Can I get recently today? Greg, take your basketball. So this is called the Bonner Challenge. Are you guys aware of the Bonner Challenge? You know Matt Bonner, who used to play for the Raptors and for the Spurs. He invented this thing, and then Chip England, the shooting coach in San Antonio, they refined this buffoonery. The Bonner Challenge is they have to be your first shots of the day. It doesn't count if they're not your first shots of the day. You got to come in, you got to make a right-handed layup. Perfect. You got to make a left-handed layup. This is cold. You got to do it cold. It doesn't count. Good. We got to come to the dots-ish. Somewhere here. You got to make this one. You are done. You do not complete the challenge on your first miss. You got to make a free throw. This is going very, very well for you. We got a 3-point shot. Woo! We got a free throw. Now you're halfway done. Now you got to work your way back in. Now you got to make your free throw again. For the record, I've never had anybody complete the Bonder Challenge. From the dots.
Oh no.
Get in there. Left-handed layup. Right-handed layup. Now, in San Antonio, they love their buffoonery. They work hard, they practice hard, but they enjoy their fun too. And so the championship belt then goes and what's your name? Sits above Jordan's locker now until the next person who completes the Bonner Challenge. They have to be your first shots of the day. They have to be witnessed by somebody else so that you can't just claim you did it. In the NBA, we do it right-hand layup, left-hand layup, dots, free throw, college 3, NBA 3, college 3, free throw, dots, left-handed, right-handed. Different teams have a little different variations. What does it teach? Not much. We kind of say, hey, it's going to encourage you to be focused on your first couple of shots of the day. Really, it's just kind of a whole bunch of fun. So it gets players sort of engaged and thinking about their shots at the beginning. I want to focus on this first hour, and then we'll take a little break. The first hour is going to be what I would teach to different age groups. The reason for me choosing this as a topic is my 9-year-old daughter is playing her first year of basketball. And we took her to her first practice. And in the first practice, the wonderful lady who's coaching, she spent 45 minutes educating the kids on 9 different points in shooting without them shooting a single shot. And they were the kids were bored to tears. And they weren't possibly capable of executing 7 of the 9 habits. And so what I try and do is I don't want to pick a battle that I can't win, especially with really younger players. And so instead I want to focus. Are we back? You guys can hear me? Okay, we're back. What I want to focus on is if I'm going to pick a battle, I want to win it. And with younger players, if we start to get into that 9, 10-year-old range, they're not capable of doing this stuff. And if we spend a whole bunch of time teaching these mechanics, they do them horribly and we lose that battle. So with the 9 and the 10-year-olds, what I want to focus on is I want to focus on habits in the lower body and the balance and really start to lay that foundation. They are capable of doing it. It's 1 or 2 simple little points, and it happens typically before their shot starts, so they can give it their attention and then kind of go ahead and shoot their shot from there. If I can borrow 2 young players to come out. Come on out, guys. Thank you very much. We're going to pretend you're 9 and 10. Don't be insulted. We're just doing it for demonstration. Bring your basketballs. You'll need a ball there, big fella. Thank you. Okay, so there's a great book out there by Doug Lemov. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I don't even know the title of it. It's either Practice Perfect or Perfect Practice. I can't remember which order the words come in. And they talk about isolating the problem. And it was a book initially. He did a whole bunch of studies on how to teach teachers to teach better. And they realized that they had to isolate problems and then develop simple solutions to learn to execute those problems better. So I've been doing kind of the same idea with shooting, and I want players to have the time to think about their bad habit, try to execute it perfectly, and then we slowly make the situation more complex. And slowly could be over the course of a couple of weeks. What I want to avoid doing is saying, hey, you need to get your feet wider apart. Now let's go do it at game speed, because the player doesn't have time to think about it, and so they just execute the same old habit that they've always had. I get frustrated, they get frustrated, we both give up. And that's not acceptable. We can't be in that situation. So, first thing, as a 9 or 10-year-old, I want you guys to understand that I want you to be stable when you shoot the basketball. We talk about balance. You've probably heard balance being the important part of our shot, but we don't necessarily always understand what that means. Are we back? And we're back. How is balance important? Balance is what allows you to control the energy that your shot creates, or that your body creates. When you're moving, what's your name?
Caden.
Caden, I want you, let's just kind of start here. I want you to hop as far as you can to your left, stop and shoot quickly. You're going to hear, hop, good, and now shoot. Okay, so he's trying to get open. On that little hop, he's creating energy that's going way to his left. That energy doesn't help him on the shot part, so we want to be able to do that to get open, stop that, control that, and create energy that goes towards the hoop. If we do that exact same thing, I want you to land with your feet really close together and then quickly shoot when you land. So you're going to hop, feet right together, good. With your feet close together, you're not able to control your body. So you don't have the stability, don't have the balance, you don't have the foundation of your shot. So the first thing we're going to think about is we're just going to try and land with our feet hip width apart. Everybody talks about shoulder width apart. It drives me crazy. I would prefer talking about hips because a player can't see their shoulders. When you look down, they go, well, I can see this one, I can see that one, but I can't see them both at the same time. When you look down at your feet, you can see your hips. Your hips are the same width as your shoulders. Let's talk hip width apart instead. My definition is fit your hips in between your feet. Okay, so I want you to show me hip width apart, being able to fit your hips in between your feet, even a little wider. If you sat down, I want them to not touch your shoes. Good. That's where we want to be able to shoot out of. So you're going to hop to your right or to your left, land up, check. Good. And that's probably the biggest point that we need to make with young players right now. I'm going to give you all the advice, but it's not going to work unless you know. Did you see your feet a little narrower? Okay, come back and do it again. Not mad at you, we just got to get it better. Good. Are you happy with those? Good. You got the body feeling what that feels like a little bit? Okay, go ahead and shoot that. This is the tempo at which Caden is capable of doing this right now. So I got to give him the opportunity to figure out, what does this feel like? How do I do this? So let's keep going. Let's start to build this habit a little bit more often. Happy with him? I go a little wider. Let's go back and do it again. Good. Shoot it. Okay, one other little thing to be aware of. You landed. You checked. I love that. You get it soft, feet nice and wide apart, and then you kind of went. And went kind of back to those. No problem. Those are the little things that human beings do when we're uncomfortable. We go back to a comfortable situation, but the comfortable thing is holding you back. We got to develop this new habit. We're going to go back. Why? You happy? Good. Now don't wiggle them back. Shoot it. Excellent. We're just constantly putting him in a situation where he has a chance to do this right. I would, with 9 and 10-year-olds, do this sort of thing for 15 minutes, assuming at that age, at the youth community level, you get one practice, one game a week. Is that about right? Hour and a half practice or an hour practice? Hour and a half? Awesome. Okay, better than an hour. 15 minutes I would spend just on like shooting fundamentals every single day, starting with just really simply land, understand why we're trying to be on balance, put them in a very simple situation. So we can get, what's your name over here, bud? Joseph? You're going to be over on this side of the floor doing the exact same thing. You're going to hop to your left. You're going to check to make sure that your feet are nice and wide apart. If they are, you shoot it, you grab your rebound, you hop to your right the next time. Okay? So that's all we're doing. We're just thinking about one thing. Okay? Do it on your own time. Hop into your right. Good. Now, Joseph, you got to be the shooting coach. You got to check. I'll watch for you. I'm happy to watch for you. But I need you to land, decide if you're hip width apart, learn what that feels like. If you make a mistake, change it. Okay, go. You happy with those? You didn't feel that you were a little off balance there yourself? You had trouble? Okay, we need to be a little wider. Good. Look. Encourage kids. They have to be the shooting coach. If they don't know that they have a bad habit, they're never going to fix it. If they know and we can support them and just say, hey, I have bad habits too. No problem. We're just going to work on yours and we're going to do this, and you're not going to do it perfectly the first time. You're not even going to be perfect at this tomorrow. We're going to, over the course of a season, get better at this one habit. Too many of us focus on we're coaching a team and we forget that we're a part of a program. And if we can take advantage of the program idea, then we're going to be way ahead of the game. What I want to avoid, if you're a part of a program, is saying, okay, we have no idea what each level is teaching and we don't care. They're all their own identities. That's not a program. Hopefully we can start to say, at the youth level with 9 and 10-year-olds, we're just going to focus on this lower body because they can't do the upper body well anyways. Let's focus on the lower body. Good. Now where the kids are moving into the 11, 12-year-old range, now they're old enough to be able to start to do this well, and they've already got this habit in place. We don't even need to focus on these anymore. We can start to develop with the kids. That's my goal with having a program. So you guys can be alternating back and forth, going left, going right. We're focused on feet nice and wide apart. Joseph, you can go ahead whenever you're ready, bud. Good. You have to be mindful. You can't accidentally build a habit. You're going to have to actually work to try to build the habit. And we won't do a ton of this because kids will get bored fairly quickly. With a really young group, I might stop and say, okay, now put the basketballs down and let's just make the motion of a correct shot without a basketball. But for the most part, I just want them focused on their feet. Next part of it, we're going to talk about getting our toes at the rim, which kind of brings me to a point. I have a shooting theory. We have all these little debates. Should we be square? Should we be turned? Should you shoot from the middle of your body over top of your dominant eye or outside of your ear? Have your theory, know it like the back of your hand, and then forget it. Okay, I have my theory. I know it like the back of my hand, but this is the player that I'm working with. Okay, and he may or may not be able to do some of the things that I would love in a vacuum. We got to figure out why is that one player missing, and that's the challenge, the battle that we need to fight. Okay, so I have my template, I have my idea, but now I got to figure out, why does Aaron Gordon miss? Aaron Gordon missed because he gripped the ball incorrectly. Why does Bismack Biyombo miss? Because he got his wrist flat. We had to get his wrist bent back. It wasn't trying to make him look like Klay Thompson. It was trying to fix his error. Have your theory, know it like the back of your hand, and then forget it, fix the player that's in front of you. Okay, so now you got two things to think about. Your feet are you're going to land wide apart, and you're going to land with your toes pointed at the rim. Okay? You guys know you had a look of confusion on your face when I said at the rim.
Can you say that again?
You're going to land with your feet nice and wide apart, like we were doing before, and then your toes are going to point straight forward. Why do we want toes straight forward? Because watch what happens to your center of gravity as you rock up onto your toes. It goes towards the rim and up. Those two kinds of energy help you make shots. What we want to avoid is turning your feet. Now my toes are pointed over here, and now my center of gravity is actually moving this way as I'm showing it. And if I were jumping, I'd probably be jumping even more that direction. We're creating energy over here, but the hoop is over there. The energy that we create gets given to the basketball. We want it going towards the hoop. Okay? So two things now to think about. And this might be on your second practice of the day, or of the season, that you're adding on the next layer. Jumping side to side. Good. Being the shooting coach. Encourage kids, constantly remind them, you are in charge of building this habit. All I do is give advice, and give you situations. Might go a little wider, Caden. Good. Good. Okay. I used to be a big golfer, not a good golfer, but a golf fan. And I went to the driving range. You guys keep going while I'm chatting. And I had a profound moment as a coach listening to somebody else coach. So I'm at the driving range and I'm at a stall, and I always went to the stall closest to the lessons so I could kind of listen in on the lesson. Not because I wanted to learn about the swing, I wanted to hear how other people taught a skill. And the particular gentleman that I was listening to had a middle-aged or older woman that he was giving a lesson to, and he gave her different feedback on every single swing. So he coached the previous swing. And so she would set up and she would do something and she would banana slice the ball off, and he'd say, okay, on that shot, your club face was open and you swung outside in. So I need you to close your club face and make sure you're an inside out swing. And she'd go, okay, perfect. And she'd try and do it. And he'd say, okay, now on that one, you really try to scoop the ball now. And he gave her different feedback on every single swing. And I listened in, I thought, this poor woman doesn't stand a chance of getting better because he's not coaching a habit, he's trying to correct something that's already happened. And I realized I have to learn to shut up. I have to learn to let players make mistakes and let them learn from the mistakes and have a focus on what I'm doing. So I don't want to coach every single mistake or every single possible error. I wanted players to have the opportunity to learn for themselves. And I'm going to focus on, okay, just how wide apart are their feet? I might go a little wider there. Good. Good. Oh, it felt yourself off balance. Okay. Engage that. And just let them have that room to kind of figure things out rather than trying to correct every single mistake in every single shot. Okay, so 9 and 10-year-olds, I would focus on lower body. We'll do a little round of applause for these guys. Thank you very much. You guys can kind of head over. So then we get, the kids have now graduated, they're now 11 or 12 years old. And hopefully their habits are in place where they have a pretty stable lower body. Legs are being used well, wide base. Do I mind a little bit of a stagger or a little bit of a turn? Not so much, but obviously we don't want to do this. So I want to be as square as we possibly can. That's my theory. Okay, may or may not be yours, that's fine. Now we're into the 11 and 12-year-olds, and I would start to focus on how do we grip the basketball. This is the beginning of true shooting in my mind. Feet are wildly important, don't get me wrong. I used to think when I started out as a shooting coach that the feet were the most important part of the shot. And I still believe they're second, but I think I started to realize that these are just the easiest to coach. And because I wasn't a very good shooting coach in the beginning, I started to say, I can coach this well. So I'm going to say that's the most important thing. And what I realized probably about 6 or 7 years ago was this is the most important thing. Okay? The pointer finger of the shooting hand for 95% of the players. It's not going to be every single player, but for the vast, vast, vast majority, index finger is the most important part of your shot, and I'll explain why. I want the middle of your hand to shoot the middle of the basketball. If the middle of your hand applies force through the middle of the ball goes straight. You kind of go, what? Because I haven't figured out a great way necessarily to explain that, but it becomes much more clear when you see the opposite. If the middle of your hand is over on the right side of the ball, where is it pushing the ball? Pushing left. When your hand's over on the left side of the ball, it's pushing right. When your hand's on the middle, it pushes straight. Okay, so we need the middle of our hand to push the middle of the ball. We also want the ball going up in the air. How do we get the ball going up in the air? We push the bottom. We push the back of it, it goes flat. That was Bismack's mistake. He bent that or straightened that wrist. He was on the back of the basketball and he shot a very, very flat shot because no matter how much he tried to lift, he's still pushing the back of the ball last. Therefore it goes straight forward. So we needed to get to this position. You need to understand the relationship between this and the basketball. We talk way too much about the elbow, in my opinion. This is the pool cue. This is the cue ball. The ball is the target ball or the 8 ball. Okay? We have to be most concerned with where the cue ball contacts the 8 ball because that will determine where the 8 ball goes. It is not the angle of the cue. If there's my pocket, my cue ball is here, or my target ball is there, I can cut across it and get it to go in the pocket, or I can hit it straight on. These are easier, but it's the contact point that matters, okay? Not the angle of the cue. I can cut across with a poor angle on the cue and still get it to go that direction. This is the cue, this is the cue ball, that's the target ball, okay? Now, if the middle of your hand shoots to the middle of the ball goes straight. How do we know this is the middle of our hand? If I ask players, put your index finger, your pointer finger on the nozzle, measure the distance, and I'll get everybody, just imagine you're gripping a basketball, and with your non-shooting hand, measure the distance between your index finger and the tip of your thumb. Measure that for me. And then compare it to index finger to the tip of the pinky. Yeah, index finger, yeah, stay there. And now, for me, those two things are exactly the same. For most of us, it's exactly the same, or it's really darn close. You'll get some people who have really long thumbs or a short thumb, and maybe it sort of adjusts to kind of in the middle. That's why I say know your theory and then forget it, because sometimes you have to go, oh, yeah, I would teach index finger in a vacuum, but you're not a vacuum. We're going to have to go there for you. Okay? For most of us, this is the middle of our hand. So then, the point that I am most concerned about in a shot is at this set point for players, can they get the index finger of their shooting hand on the very bottom of the ball and along the target line? If they can be here, they're going to be wildly successful, because now all you have to do is lift up and you're going to be pushing through the bottom of middle of the ball along your target line, and the ball has no choice but to go straight. It's just simple physics. Okay? If we end up over on the side of the ball ever so slightly, then you're going to be pushing the right side of the ball a little bit more. The ball is going to go to the left. Pushing the left side of the ball slightly, it's going to go to the right. If you're on the bottom of the ball but with your index finger across your target line rather than on your target line, then at that release of the ball, can you guys roll me a ball really quick? Thank you, appreciate it. Here's along the target line. If you end up across the target line, or elbow out, then as you're snapping your wrist, you end up over on the right side of the basketball and the ball goes to the left. You Michael Kidd-Gilchrist it, most of us can't do it, where we end up so far that we're elbow in so far that we're across our target line here, then as you snap your wrist, you end up over on the left side of the ball, and the ball goes to the right. Index finger is what matters. Elbow helps with that. So to say get your elbow in isn't wrong, as long as we understand we want elbow in so much that we get to this position here with the basketball. It doesn't need to be perfectly in, this needs to be perfect. Okay? This is shooting. If you can understand this, you're going to be wildly successful. So, with a 12-year-old, I would start to understand, can we find the middle of the ball with our index finger, and with our non-shooting hand, find the side of the ball so that all it has to do is make that simple move off. They're now starting to be strong enough that they're capable of doing this. Can I get somebody who's sort of 12 or 13 years old? Jump on out, whoever's out first. Yes. Is this the right size ball? I believe it is. All right, so come to my spot. I'm picking this spot specifically for you, but Bismack Biyombo, who is a mountain of a man, 6'9", 240 pounds, he's literally this tall, shot from that same spot. Aaron Gordon, 6'9", Tristan Thompson, 6'10", shot from that spot to start. You have to put players in a position where they can do things well and start to have some success. Our first goal is to learn to shoot A+ shots, technically, and when we start to do that, get A+ results. What we don't want to do, what's your name?
Luke.
Luke? What we don't want to do is we don't want Luke to come out here and say, shoot an A+ shot and get D- results. Because then Luke starts to think, I'm not very good at this. Okay? We're coming back into our spot. Chance where you have the chance to do the right thing and be successful. Feet wide apart, because you learned that when you were 9 or 10 years old. Toes pointed at the target. You're going to put the ball up at your set point, with the looking underneath the basketball if you can, with your pointer finger right on the bottom of the ball and along your target line. Good. Non-shooting hand beside the ball but not touching. Good. You're going to bend your knees, hold that position for 3 seconds, 2, 3, and then just lift and snap. Good. Feet. Index finger, non-shooting hand beside. Hold it for 3 seconds. Now, I want you to understand why, and check they're kind of flaring out to the side. I want you to understand why those 3 seconds are so important. Your body has to memorize where this position is, and it's going to have to be able to get into that position in a fraction of a second. And so we're going to spend a couple extra seconds every single shot to let your body memorize where that is, okay? So you're keeping those toes straight forward, bending those knees. 1, 2, 3, lift and snap. Good. Now, you're not going to believe me when I say this, but Bismack, Aaron, Tristan, Alfred Payton, Dwayne Dedman have all stood that distance as grown men in the NBA and have all airballed shots from there in their first 10 or so shots. Don't worry about it if that happens to you. And part of coaching, especially this, is preparing players for the things that might happen. I don't want to give like the rose-colored glasses view of what might happen, and I might try and sell you a little bit on that, but I want you to understand what probably will, so that when you airball a shot on the 7th shot or so, you don't panic and go, oh my God, this isn't working. You're actually able to say, oh, he told me that was going to happen. He told me it's no deal. He told me better players than me have done that, and they worked out just fine. So, feet set, watch those feet. A little wider. No, wider, wider. Good. Yes, wider, but now with the toes railroad track straight through the middle of the hoop. Putting the ball up here. Good. 2, 3, lift and snap. Good. How old are you? Okay, perfect. So we're just at this age where you're starting to get strong enough, and this is going to become a whole lot easier for over the next little bit. Understand that when you use your shooting hand correctly, you don't need your non-shooting hand. Why do young players younger than you use their non-shooting hand so much? Because their shooting hand is over there, and where's this shooting hand going to push the basketball? Right. So they know they don't want that to happen, so they take this hand and they go like, all right, this hand's going to push the ball that way. Those two things are going to cancel each other out, and it's hopefully going to go straight. And once you start to become 12, 13, 14 years old, we got to start to break that habit. Okay, so give me that position again. Good. 2, 3, lift. Excellent. Now, once you get really, really, really good at that, we're probably on like practice number 4 or 5. I want you to start to learn how to get into that position. So here's where we want to be, and guys, we'll just keep the conversation quiet, please. Hey, it's about them right now. Okay, thank you. We need to be able to get into this position. Now, can we start here, find this, and make the correct move? Start with your pointer finger on the top of the basketball, pointed at the hoop. So triple threat position. Good. Tuck it in nice and close to your body. Your pointer finger is pretty much on the top of the ball. Good. Lift it to that position that we were just at. Non-shooting hand comes off, but it stays beside. Good. And now you shoot it out. So I call this ABC. The first drill I call isolation drill. We isolate the last part of our shot. We isolate from the set point and learn to lift properly. This is ABC. We start from triple threat. We go to set point. We make sure that we're in the correct set point, and then we shoot it out of there. And I'll start to develop a couple different terminologies. That's A, that's B, that's C, so players know, here, I'm in A position, I'm in B position, I'm in C position. So this ends up being called isolation drill position, set point, B position with players I work with, and we just kind of find out which, I listen for what they use, and then that's what I talk about as well. So if they think a set point helps them understand what the position is and some of the important parts of that position, then I use set point. If they refer to it as B position, that's the one that I use with them. I don't get too hung up on terminology. It ends up being really personal, I think, to the players. So A, show me A position, index finger on the top of the ball. Good. Lift it to B position, non-shooting hands off. Good. And then C, shoot it out. Good. And we won't get into the little details that we'd try to clean up, but can we start by being in the right position here, making the right move? Can we learn to find that position when we're moving from triple threat into it? And then the last drill is, can we start to smooth out this motion? So, starting from triple threat, I want you to lift the ball, and I want it to be really slow. Like you take 3 or 4 seconds to get to your set point, and use all this time to watch your index finger, make sure it's always on the middle of the basketball, and when you arrive at your set point, it's correct, and you don't stop anymore, you just accelerate out of it. This part's slow, that part's quick. Now hold on 1 second. Good. So you grip the basketball, you got one hand pushing this way, one hand pushing that way. We got to be Get those hands a little closer together. Good. Index finger on the top of the ball. Lift, slow. Yeah, 2, 3, accelerate. Good. And now we wouldn't be doing this until you're great at isolation drill, but I appreciate you being willing to be an example in front of the whole group. 1, 2, 3, lift. Great shot. Now, I usually say to players in the first workout, hey, our goal in the first workout, one good shot. We can have one shot where we go, that was it. That's our goal for the first workout. And then the next time that you come in, we got second workout, we're going to try and have 3 of those. And then the third workout, we're going to try and have 10 and 2 in a row. And then the fourth workout, we're going to try and have 20, and we got 2 in a row multiple times. And we're just building. And if we can do that, we're going to be successful in time. We don't know how long it's going to take. We don't have really control over that. If we put in the work, it will happen. Watch those feet. Take a look at the feet. Good. Yeah, nice and wide apart. Good. Toes point straight forward. Index finger on the top of the ball. Lift out the middle of your body. 2, 3. Good. So we got little things to clean up, but you guys are getting a sense of the drill. Learn where this position is. Learn to make the right move out of that position. Learn how to find that position. Learn how to find that without stopping in it. Those are sort of the 3 goals of the drill. Round of applause. Thank you very much, Luke. So 9, 10-year-olds, we're focused on the lower body, the foundation, the feet. Using the legs and getting the legs bent and all those simple things that we all know. 11, 12-year-olds, we're focused on how we grip the basketball. Is our shooting hand in the right position? Are we capable of getting our non-shooting hand off the basketball? I want you to understand the relationship, and we sort of touched on it with Luke, of the relationship between the non-shooting hand and the shooting hand. There's a cause and effect that goes on between those 2 hands, and a lot of times I hear coaches saying, we got to fix their non-shooting hand. And a player goes out and they try to get their non-shooting hand off the ball, but they can't because their shooting hand isn't in a position. So every one of us, when we were 10 years old, we grabbed the basketball and we did this because we weren't strong enough. Every single kid does that, and even if they're trying to do what's right, it ends up being a 2-handed shot. And over time, we start to develop that one-handed shot. If your shooting hand isn't on the middle of the basketball, it's not going to go straight, and your body knows it. And you get over here where your shooting hand has been on the right side, because we've been making this motion. It's over on the right side of the ball, and your body, even if you don't know it in your brain, you know it in your body that this is going to go to the left. And a coach starts saying to you, hey, you got to get your non-shooting hand off the ball, but your body knows if I take it away, it's going that direction. And so they can't break that habit because we're trying to correct the effect rather than the cause. You want to get your non-shooting hand off the basketball, you got to improve the position of where your shooting hand is. If it's not fully able to support the ball and shoot it along the target line by itself, you're fighting a battle you are not going to win by trying to get that non-shooting hand off the ball. Okay? We got to be able to get the shooting hand in the right position first. Now we're into 13, 14, 15-year-olds. I want you to focus on the ball path. Hopefully their feet are right. Hopefully they're gripping the ball correctly. And now can we simplify these motions so that we have the opportunity to get the ball to leave our hand correctly at a release point, but all the positions before that, make that as easy as possible. Here's the kind of things that we want to avoid. We want to avoid like the Lonzo Ball or even Kyrie, even though he's a great shooter. They swing the ball out the left side of their body. Kevin Durant also does it as well. Swinging the ball up the left side of their body, and now they're out of position to be able to shoot the ball online. And they're trying to correct it at that last possible minute. And Kyrie and Kevin Durant are unbelievable at it. They do it really, really well. But most of us aren't that talented. So what we need to do is we need to stack the odds in our favor, make it really easy to get to here by having a simple position here and simple position there. So the ball path is something that I talk about. It's basically the path that the ball follows to get from triple threat position to your release point. And I want that to be as much straight lines as we possibly can. When you're in doubt, when you're not sure what you should be teaching, just ask yourself what is the most simple and what's the most repeatable? And you're probably going to find the answer based on those two things. What's the most simple thing I can do to get the ball from here to there? I lift in a straight line. As soon as the ball comes out this way, I'm wasting time and I'm putting my hand in a position where I'm no longer capable of shooting it straight. Cookie cutter. In a perfect world, your index finger's on the top of the basketball, pointed along your target line. If I take away my non-shooting hand, my shooting hand is in a position to shoot the ball down, but along my target line. I've got one of the two things that we want set up. It's along the target line, it's just not up yet. Here, I still don't have up, but I do have along my target line. I'm going to push the ball that direction. Here, I'm starting to get up, and I have along my target line. And here I have up and along. Okay? I always had along, but I was working to get to the up position. If you swing the ball up the left side of your body as a right-handed shooter, not in a position to shoot it up, not in a position to be along my target line. Not up, not along. Not up, not along. Now we're up and along. We've corrected it all at that last minute, and you can do it, but it's just harder to do it quickly, consistently. So that's why I kind of encourage index finger on the top of the ball, back of the ball, bottom of the ball. And with that ball pass so that we're not ending up over on this position. This side, right-handed, right side of the center line as a right-handed shooter, not as bad, but I want to talk about the use of our eyes for a second. In a perfect world, I want you using both of your eyes evenly. I would love, in a perfect world, for the middle of your hand to shoot right up your nose, through the middle of your forehead, and stay on the middle of the hoop. Everybody talks about the dominant eye, and I think we talk about it way too much. We have a dominant eye for these two planes, these 2 degrees. We have 2 eyes for this one. And this is a huge part of shooting. You're firing a bow and arrow, you're not really worried about depth. You're firing a gun, you're not worried about depth. You're shooting through that target. Here, we're not shooting through the hoop. We're trying to gauge this, and this, and we need both eyes to do it. Now, this is all perfect world stuff. Shooting a basketball is never a perfect world. I will happily settle for over the right eye as a right-handed shooter. Ear, I start to get a little worried. Off the shoulder, tremendously worried, because you would never fire a gun like this, or bow and arrow, or play pool. You're not going to make this shot very often. You are going to make that shot more often. Okay? So try to, as much as you can, get the ball on line with the player's eyes. Then once we start to get into 16, 17, 18 years old, now we're refining the habits for that individual. I would want to be getting into the details. What makes Bobby special? What makes Sally special that we need to adjust? Why do they miss the shots that they're missing? We should start to have more practice time at that time. More access to the athletes, more individual work possible. So just be aware of what battle can I fight for the amount of practice time that I have and the skill level and physical strength of the athlete. What battle can I fight that I will win? And I think the younger the athlete, the lower in the body you kind of need to go in order to get there. Questions on this stuff. Now, I'm going to go, after questions, we'll take a couple of minute break, and then I'm coming back and we're going to get into common errors and fixes. So maybe don't worry about that stuff, but if you have something specific.
Is sighting over top or under the ball, is that a preference or is that a pretty hard rule?
I think that's a pretty hard rule. So the question, if you guys couldn't hear, sighting underneath the ball or over top of the ball. I want everything to be, no, everything's not the right way to express it. I would like at that last instant everybody to be looking underneath the basketball. That's not to say you need to be a 2-motion shooter where you're here and then you're shooting from that position, but even a 1-motion shooter, which most youth players will be, should be getting underneath the basketball, lifting up at the last moment. Okay, so 1-motion, 2-motion shooters, I think that's sort of decided by the shooter. Although I think most young players are going to end up being one motion so that they get the full power from their shot. But it has to be looking underneath the ball at that last moment, because if we're looking over top of the basketball, we're going to be in a hand position. We're on the back of the basketball, and we're shooting it forward, and this is why most young players shoot a flat shot. But that's...
I meant on the pause, which you're saying not having looked at the ball.
Right, so at that set point, rather than the pause, we'll say the set point, just in case they don't pause. Yeah, so it would be underneath the basketball so that we have that room. If your pause is here, or your set point is here, and we never get underneath it, hands on the back of the ball, it's gonna go flat, it's gonna go forward. We got to, even if you're gonna be in this position, but we got to continue on to this one and lift up out of there.
I know you just mentioned we talked about fixes, but what if I get a player who's 15, has already had 5 or 6 years of technique issues, in my opinion, it's not following that. Do you start right where?
You got to figure out what the problem is, isolate the problem, learn to correct it, and then slowly make the situation in which they can do it correctly more complicated until one day you're at a game situation.
So the feet are right, you don't have to go back to the feet, it's the next person.
Right. Right, so and that's my reality, and that's why I'm going to say some things and you're going to think like, well, that doesn't really apply to me because we kind of live in different worlds where you guys unfortunately get 12 athletes for an hour at a time once a week, or maybe a couple of times a week. I get them for an hour on a one-on-one basis whenever I want. And so my job is easier than yours, and so I need you to teach me sort of what the challenges that you face. But yeah, that is my world that I live in, where, okay, Bismack Biyombo comes in and he's flat-wristed there, and we got to figure out, okay, I need you into this position, okay, and making that move. And we isolate that problem, and a lot of that isolation drill that I do, that's the first drill for most players, because it puts them in a position where they can now, Aaron Gordon, for him, how he gripped the basketball was wrong. He tried to palm the ball when he was shooting. And we needed to say, hey, we don't need the thumb at this angle. We need the thumb at an angle that mirrors our pinky and puts our index finger on the middle of the basketball. You got to learn where this position is with that thumb feeling and then slowly build it backwards from there. I end up going through that progression with 80% of my players. Isolate the problem, slowly build it, and especially at that age, yeah, hopefully they do have habits that we get to continue on with.
Does your finger is the last part of your hand to touch the ball before you shoot it? This is the last part?
Ideally, yeah. So we need whatever is the middle of your hand needs to be pushing the middle of the ball along the target line at that release. Now, there are other ways to do it, and people will say, well, Steph Curry releases the ball off his middle finger, and he's the best shooter ever to live. And I won't argue with that, but Steph has two little flaws. He starts over on the right side of the ball, and then he finishes sort of over on the left side with his middle finger on the middle. He's starting shooting the ball to the left slightly and finishes by shooting it to the right slightly, and those two things cancel them out. There's a bunch of great video that you can find on YouTube. I've seen it on Instagram a couple times where it's super slow motion of video from behind of Steph, and you can see, ooh, it's going left, ooh, now it's right, ooh, now it's going to the, and those two things cancel out and it comes off the middle of your finger. You can do it. It's just hard to do it quickly and consistently, so we would encourage players to push through the middle of the ball with their index finger or whatever is the middle of their hand. Anybody else? All right, shall we take a short little break so I can grab some water and then we'll get going again? Common errors and fixes coming up next. Stay tuned. All right. What's that?
You're on fire.
Appreciate it. Can I turn this off?